Hey there, this is Ross Izzard, and this is the Backcountry Fly Fishing Podcast, where we talk about fly fishing in more interesting places. So, first and foremost, I owe you a little bit of an apology. We had an amazing guest last week in Maggie Picon from the American Hiking Society. She was incredibly informative. I really enjoyed talking to her, and she sounded great, but I had to record on a backup microphone because I had some technical difficulties on my normal recording microphone. Now, this should not surprise you. I am a boneheaded fly fisherman, not a tech guy. I started doing podcast 4.5 seconds ago, and so even though I have all the right equipment, occasionally the monkey is not smart enough to make that equipment function properly. So we had one of those days yesterday. I had to record on a backup mic. I am aware of the fact that I sounded a little bit like I was on the phone, and I apologize for that. We're back on the regular mic here. Hopefully, we'll have no further technical issues, but all the information's still there. You can still make out what we're talking about. Hopefully, you still had a good time. Hopefully, you still learned a lot about how to be a good hiker, and I am very hopeful that from now on, you'll be listening to my sweet, sultry voice on the correct microphone going forward. So thanks for your patience on the recording and sound quality side. Hopefully you still had a good time with that podcast. And this week we are back with another interview, this time about where you get your fly fishing stuff. So, we've rattled off a bunch of stuff that you need, things you need to carry, rods, reels, rain jackets, backpacks, all sorts of stuff. But that still leaves the question about where you go to get that stuff and where you go when you have questions about exactly which items you want to buy. That is where a trusted fly shop comes in. Fly shops have reached sort of almost mythical status in the fly fishing community. And while I think that can be a little bit overblown, you can definitely go out and fish without talking to a fly shop. If you can find a good shop that you trust, who can give you advice and steer you in the right direction on the stuff that you need, you're going to be a happy camper, and honestly, you're probably going to have a better time fishing. And when you inevitably break something or run out of the tying materials that you need or whatever, you just know where to go. You can call your guy at the local fly shop. So I have a local fly shop here in Denver. It is a shop called AvidMax. I've been using them for years. They have a storefront here in Denver, but they also operate a nationwide fly shop online for folks who are looking to order everything from boots to waders to rods to reels to flies to fly tying materials and almost anything that you can imagine. It's actually kind of wild how much they have in their warehouse. And I just love those guys. I spend way too much money there. Every time I go into the shop, I come out with, a whole bag full of stuff that I probably didn't need, but I really wanted. And they've always been good to me. They've been kind of my trusted partners when it comes to picking up the gear that I need. And I wanted to give them a chance to come on and talk a little bit about their business, because it is a pretty unique type of fly shop, and sort of what it's like to live in that industry and to work in that industry and to have your job be helping people who are wanting to get into fly fishing or take the next step into backcountry fly fishing. It's just generally what it's like to live in that universe. So to that end, we are joined today by Patrick Srebniak, which I believe I pronounced correctly. He is a customer service specialist at AvidMax. I have talked to him many times in the shop. He's a great guy, really knows his stuff. And he's here today to kind of walk us through what it's like to work in a fly shop, the stuff that you might need if you're looking to put in an order and get into this crazy fly fishing thing or this backcountry fly fishing thing, and everything in between. So it's a really good conversation. I actually learned a lot despite the fact that I've been shopping at AvidMax for as long as I have. There was a lot of stuff about them and the business that I just didn't know. And I think you'll come away with a good sense of what to look for in a fly shop, the things that you need, the kind of people that you need, and just a general sense of where you can go if you need that help and you need somebody who can walk you through the gear side of this. So I think you'll enjoy the interview. I really enjoyed talking to Patrick. He's a great guy from a great shop. And it was awesome to have him on the show. So without further ado, we will go ahead and hop right in. All right. So our guest today is Patrick Srebniak. Did I say it right?
Yes, indeed.
I got it right. Okay. Polish, you said, right?
Yes, it is.
Awesome. He is with AvidMax, which is probably my favorite fly shop in Colorado, and a lot of people's favorite fly shop really in the U.S. They've got some pretty long reach. He's here with us today to talk about what it's like to work in a fly shop, what it's like to work in the industry, and also how he likes to fish. He lives in Colorado just like I do, probably fishes a lot of the same places that I do and that you do. And we're going to talk to him about all things fly shops and all things backcountry fly fishing and where you can get the stuff you need to go out and have a good time in the backcountry. So, Patrick, thanks for coming.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You bet. So maybe we could start with you kind of introducing yourself and telling us how you got started in this industry. It's a lot of people fly fish, but not a lot of people do fly fishing for a living. How'd you get there?
Sure. Well, yeah, Patrick Srebniak is my name. Customer service is my game here at AvidMax. Got into fly fishing. My dad was always an outdoorsman, hunting, fishing, all of that kind of stuff. So plenty of spin rods hanging out in the garage. And, when dad says we're going out for a trip, we're all going out for a trip. So no problem. I have the capability of being able to sit still for extended periods of time. So fishing wasn't bad at all for me. You throw out your lure and you just wait for things to happen, which was fine, fun. Always enjoyed it, no problem. But fly fishing specifically was a little bit more recent. A couple years ago, had a college friend move back over to Colorado, back into town, and he's a social butterfly, Rob. So before he gets into anything, he's always got to make sure that he has people to do it with. His father, Peter Lamai, excuse me, Peter Lamai, he's a master casting instructor, well connected in the industry. So, of course, kind of pushed it onto his son, Rob. Rob kind of was looking for friends to get into it. So, managed to twist my arm a little bit. Me and my brother came along, got into fly fishing, and, sort of the rest is history. We got deeper and deeper into it until I became an employee at the fly shop here.
All right. So you started out spin fishing. I started out spin fishing too. Kind of the same story. My dad kind of taught me a few things. I actually didn't even use lures, man. I was like drowning worms beneath a bobber most of the time for a really large and kind of embarrassingly long chunk of my life before I got into fly fishing. And then you made the switch through a friend. That's how it happens. It's the gateway drug effect. You have a friend that says you should just try it one time, and then you can't stop doing it. So let me ask you, have you ever gone back to spin fishing, or are you fly fishing only at this point?
Fly fishing only at this point, but it's kind of tickling my interest a little bit, the whole spin game. Maybe, I have access to equipment nowadays at reasonable prices, quote unquote. So maybe pick up a spin rod just to have it in the back pocket for bigger lakes, something like that.
Yeah, I tell you what, there have been a lot of times where I've been out fly fishing for pike or something like that on one of the big reservoirs here in Colorado, and I get them, but there are times where I wish I had a spin rod for sure. You're trying to chuck a streamer like 90 feet and looking like an idiot doing it in the back of a kayak. Bait caster or a spin rod might be the better tool, but I have not been able to make myself pick one up again. So I don't know. I'm gonna have to work on it. Yeah, and the depth once they get down pretty far down there, depths of the summer and things like that, it's tough to get to them on fly stuff unless you like throwing full sinking lines, which I do not, and I would argue that probably nobody does, but they might lie to you.
They're tough. They're tough to deal with sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. All right, so I understand that you are kind of AvidMax's high elevation guy. I know you like to get out. I've seen a few pictures of you with my kind of fish. These are like your little cutthroat that you're pulling out of an alpine stream, or little browns or brookies or whatever that happen to be living up there in the mountains. I'm curious about how you got into that aspect of the sport.
I mean, being a Colorado resident, it's almost obligatory that you go outside, experience the grandeur, the wonder that we have in these hills. So they just kind of came hand in hand. There's plenty of water out there, plenty of lakes, plenty of rivers flowing out of those mountains. So might as well go see the headwaters. Hopefully there's a lake well stocked that you can actually get into. So yeah, I mean it seemed like a natural marriage. Just had to do it. One walks hand in hand with the other, really.
So if you had to go between, sort of the big name rivers here in Colorado, and there are a lot. I'm not going to spot burn them here, but people know where they are and they can Google them pretty quick and figure it out. If you had to pick between those and say one of these little streams way up high for a day, which one do you think you'd go for? Maybe it depends on the day.
Probably depends on the day, but also, if you were to twist my arm, I'd probably go with the higher alpine streams or the high mountain streams, just because there's plenty of good and big fish in some of those streams as well. The scenery is unmatched. Good exercise. You're getting out, you're moving. Always good for you. It's just there. It seems to be that there's more to offer, more on offer in the high alpine, in the streams and meadows and lakes up there. Just the package is complete in that setting.
Yeah, I agree. And the scenery is tough to beat. And plus, it's getting busy out there, man. I mean, I know it's been busy for a while, and I came to fly fishing later in life than most too, so it's not like I can claim to be an original fly fisher. And I'm aware of the fact that at some point I was a new guy too. But man, even in just the last like 3 or 4 years, I have noticed a huge uptick in the number of people on sort of the mainstream waters. And that's okay. It's good to see other people getting into the sport, but it's a different way to fish. And sometimes getting off into those further out places is the only way to find anything that approximates solitude, without bumping into somebody else every 10 feet.
Absolutely, absolutely. And once you get a little bit further off the beaten path, once you can no longer see the car from the water or the water from the car, better odds that you're going to be in better shape. You might have the whole lake to yourself for the day, which has happened many, many, many times to me and my people here in Colorado, Wyoming, wherever we happen to go. You get out a little bit, and the water's all yours.
Yeah, I heard somebody say one time that there's the 50-50 rule. If it's below 50 degrees or if they have to walk more than 50 feet from the car, the number of people who are going to fish it drops dramatically. They just don't want to do that.
Perfect. I mean, that makes it easy for us.
Yeah, that's right. It leaves more water for us. That's
You
exactly right.
bet.
All right, so tell me about AvidMax. It's a pretty unique fly shop. Like I said, I found you guys, several years ago, and since then have spent just entirely too much time and money on your website. I love the shop, but it's kind of a unique model, and I wonder if you could talk about how it works and where it came from.
Sure. I mean, AvidMax, as we know it today, is the process of a little bit of evolution. Our current owner, Mike Maxim, he's been here since the beginning. Started with a partner of his, Mr. Davidson, so that's kind of where the name comes from. Davidson Maxim, AvidMax. Started out as a distributor, mostly just selling and sending products. There was a lot of industry. They had an interest in the photography industry, so started with photography equipment, camera bags mostly. Then the first storefront was actually located right next to one of our current distributors here in town. And at the time, they were a distributor for Fish Pond as well, when Fish Pond was still over in Kansas. So, Mike went over there one day just to meet the neighbors, see what's going on. Saw some very nice Fish Pond luggage, and they have very nice luggage. So he thought, well, that could be, we could sort of make the best of it, use it for some photography equipment, camera bags and such. So he brought in Fish Pond, and it started growing a little bit from there, blossoming from there. And a rep was assigned to the account, of course. So the rep started, kind of sprinkling some ideas in his ear. Maybe you should bring in this product and this product, and sort of from the photography and camera industry and the products they were carrying there morphed into more and more fly fishing related things until full on fully fledged fly shop as you know it today.
And it's really kind of more than so for anybody who hasn't been to AvidMax, and if you live in Colorado, you should go check it out. It's a cool place. You roll up to it. It's in this kind of officey area, and the storefront itself is pretty small. So maybe Patrick's in there or somebody's there behind the desk. They've got the flies out, fly tying materials, waders, stuff like that. I mean, it looks like a fly shop, but your immediate impression when you walk in is that man, it's kind of a small fly shop. But then when you tell them what you want, they go through this door behind the desk, and there is this Shangri-La warehouse back there of just shelves and I mean, I don't know how tall those shelves are, but I mean, it's an actual warehouse full of gear and bags and fly tying equipment and flies well, you tell us, but what else is back there in that place?
Anything for your fly fishing needs, really, except for the most obscure and hardest to find products. We should have you covered, from the dead of winter on freshwater to the height of summer on the salt. We've got something for you. And yeah, the warehouse is truly extensive. So our capabilities as far as selling online, fulfillments and such, and our presence online is disproportionately much larger than our storefront would lead you to believe.
Yeah, so I'm curious about sort of how your business spreads out. I mean, obviously, I live in Colorado. Usually, when I order something, I will check the little box that says I can just come pick it up in the store because, well, then I have an excuse to talk to you guys, and I might get to buy some bonus stuff while I'm there. So it's a good way to, get myself in even more trouble. But, between I guess your online portion and the storefront portion, how does your business break down? Is it mostly in Colorado? Is it spread out evenly across the U.S.? Are you hitting people in other parts of the world? What does it look like?
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely not isolated here to Colorado. We've got people bringing in orders from all across the country, and I mean, country being as big as it is, I would say our online commerce is mostly out of state. And yes, we do ship internationally. As long as we have a carrier that can get the package to where it needs to go, as long as there's no sort of legal red tape, bureaucratic problems along the way, we can get it to you.
And it's kind of interesting because a lot of the stuff that you have, there are fly shops. There are a lot of good fly shops out there. And a lot of them they have big racks full of flies. They have a bunch of kind of items, I guess, that you could get, but they're mostly targeted at going fishing. So they're like flies and leaders and fly line and waders and sort of equipment. And they might have a little section dedicated to fly tying stuff, but it's like, a corner somewhere. And it's kind of the basic stuff. I tie all my own flies. I tie an absurd number of flies, way more than I will ever actually fish because I like doing it. And that's about half of the sport for me, to be honest. And a lot of it uses really pretty obscure stuff. I mean, random feathers from birds you've never heard of and specific size tungsten beads and wire and everything else. And there have been at least a few items that I have only ever been able to find at AvidMax. And as a result, I just order all of my stuff from you guys pretty much all the time. But I am curious. I mean, I've never run across anyone, whether it's physical or an online store, that has the same breadth of products back there. I mean, everything from rods to reels to waders to fly tying materials. And every time I think about that, I think about how much work it probably took to go out, find that stuff, figure out the distribution patterns, talk to the people, and get it synced up. And I guess I'm just curious about how you built such a smorgasbord of cool fly fishing stuff, including really obscure tying materials that you've now got on hand when it seems like to me nobody else does.
That's going to be largely due to our purchasing managers, currently Taylor, formerly Max Pavel. Some of you folks may have seen him on our YouTube channel. Some of you folks may have spoken with him, but it's really up to our managing team, our purchasing team, and the fact that they are connected to fly fishing. It's what they love. They're here working at AvidMax because they're all about fly fishing. It's everything to them. So it's not a stretch. It's not any sort of excessive labor for them to get in touch or to sort of look around what's on offer across the industry, what new technology is coming up, what new products are exciting, might get the consumer's attention, so on and so forth. So it's really the purchasing team being plugged in and vigilant and bringing in the best of the best that there is to offer.
So does everybody there fish? Is everybody at AvidMax a fisher?
Almost everybody, I think maybe two or three of the folks on the entire premises of the 12 or 13 that we have don't. But yeah, for the most part, the vast majority of the company are all fishermen, fly fishermen.
It's always a big difference when you're talking to somebody who actually fly fishes. I've been to a couple shops, and I won't name them. But they're trying to sell you something, and I don't blame them for that. It's a business. But then you kind of talk to them, and you realize that they don't really fish. Or if they do fish, it's like a couple times a year, and this is just sort of a passing through thing for them, and that's okay. So no hate there. But it's kind of different, man. And as far as the products that you need and the stuff that you want to have with you, especially when you're way out in the sticks, fishing in the middle of nowhere, having people that do it a lot, and that's kind of a passion for them, is a huge plus. And so I guess I'm curious, Patrick. Some people say that if you should never do your hobbies for a living because it'll ruin them for you. And I don't know if that's true or not for fly fishing. I don't get paid to go fly fishing or to talk, so I just do it for fun. But I'm curious, do you find that since you started working in the industry, do you fish more? Do you fish less? Or How has it interacted with kind of your love for the sport?
It hasn't really affected whether how much I go out, how much I don't go out. For me, I don't get out on weekdays, that's for sure, just because I need the entire day. So, like to leave in the morning, fish as many hours as humanly possible. It's really, really hard for me to get off of the water. So, to only dedicate an afternoon, maybe 2, 3, 4 hours. Don't get me wrong, it'd be nice, but that's just not enough time for me. So I need a full weekend day, be it Saturday, be it Sunday, maybe the entire weekend, maybe a 3-day weekend. Um, so my days off are reserved for fishing, and we get out there plenty for sure. This last summer has been a bit of a bust for me. I've got a bit of a tweaked ankle, so I can't do all the walking that I normally would in the hills. But you still find a way. There are plenty enough spots out there that the walk is short enough. Not too many people get out there. It can be done.
Yeah, and if you want to be out there badly enough, you'll figure it out. Now, I should preface that by saying, don't go on a real long hike with a broken ankle. You might have a bad time, but
Yeah, don't do
um,
that.
I've definitely fished through some injuries where maybe arguably I shouldn't have been doing that, but I got to be out there, man. It's not just fishing; it's therapy for me, and I can't stay away. So I hear you. All right, so on the days that you're not fishing, when you're in the shop, you go to work in the morning, and I'm curious, what does your day look like? So, you get rocking. What time do you start? And then what does a normal day there at AvidMax look like? How does it go?
For me, being a customer service representative specialist, the days go fast. We are always attending to something, whether it's, just the internal workings of the shop, making sure orders are getting out as they should, contacting customers about an order that may have some irregularity, perhaps a product is on there that perhaps shouldn't be. We can talk to them, get them into the right thing, whether it's often we see the pound test is either too much that they've ordered or for the backing. The poundage on the test is too much or they've just ordered too great a length. We'll address that. We do the spooling for free, so I get a chance to see those orders. So we address those kinds of things. And then there's seemingly we sell on some third party marketplaces, so seemingly there's always something that's going to go wrong there. A carrier is going to be delayed by a day for whatever reason. Maybe a package got lost in transit, so on and so forth. So there's always going to be somebody with something to say. So that takes up a bit of time, but it's fast paced. It's always moving. I like to say I come to work for an hour a day every day because that's what it feels like. In all honesty, this is my work is the shortest part of my day by far.
How many orders do you think come through there in a day on average? You have a sense of that?
Yeah, yeah. We're looking at on the low end, 300. On the high end, we'll get into 1,000 and change in the holiday seasons per day.
And those are individual orders, so they're not like items. Those are package orders of people coming in and buying a bunch of stuff.
A lot of orders are single items, 2, 3 items, but a great number of them are extended 5 to 20 items even. So the item count is easily in the thousands, almost certainly every day. But yeah, in the holiday seasons, it can get really tight in the back.
Man, my orders are definitely skewed on that like 25 side. I need to chill out on that. It's kind of a problem. But all right, so one thing I've always wondered about is, I mean, you're obviously busy in there. You're doing stuff and getting things done. And then people come in, and they might be guys like me who are coming in to, chat with you or talk your ear off about something related to fly tying or a stream I want to go to. They could be somebody buying a gift, like you said. It might be somebody who has never fished before and wants to get into it. And I guess thinking about all those varied backgrounds, so ages, skill levels, perspectives, walks of life. How do you manage that? Like your goal is to get them equipped and to get them out the door and get them into fly fishing so they can catch fish and have fun. But that's got to look different for every person. And I'm curious, when somebody comes through the door, how do you size them up, and then from there, how do you get them what they need to get them on their way?
I like to get them talking. I like to let them inform me of what they know, what they don't know, what their level is, how long they've been into it. And they don't necessarily do it outright. They won't tell you that I've been fishing for so and so for such and such long. I know this, I know that. It's more of the things that they don't say in some cases, or the things that they're sort of struggling to find the word for it, a particular item, a particular ingredient for a fly. So I'll just approach softly in a sort of roundabout way, and I will let uh, their answers to my questions inform me what level they're at, and I'll work with them from there.
Do you have people lie to you a lot? I'm curious. Like when somebody comes in and they're, nobody wants to be the guy in a fly shop who doesn't know how to fly fish. I was that guy for the first couple years of my life. And to be honest with you, I might still be that guy on some topics, but like, it can be intimidating. You walk in the door, there's some super fishy guy behind the counter who probably fishes all the time and knows all the stuff. And you don't want to seem like you don't know anything. And so I'm guessing you probably get a lot of people who come in there and spin you a tale. Do you have any funny stories on that one, or how do you handle it when you know the guy is BSing you?
If there's something funny going on, I'll take it slow. I'll still take it slow. I'll get a little bit more verbose with my answers to their questions. Put in a little bit more of the surrounding information, just in case. I don't want to leave an answer that is going to force them to ask questions and sort of expose their lack of knowledge and their introductory level, let's say. So I'll just put in all the ancillary stuff around it, the answer first and then why, because all the fluff surrounding it. So that'll hopefully address all the little shortcomings and holes in their information that they might not be readily willing to sort of let you know about.
Yeah, and I'll just throw this out there for anybody listening. I mean, I just don't be that guy. I was that guy for a long time because my ego just couldn't admit that I suck at fly fishing. And now I just know definitively that I suck at fly fishing. I can catch fish, but it doesn't mean I'm any good at it. And man, I think back to all of those months and years that I spent trying to figure this thing out. And if I had just set my ego aside and been willing to walk in someplace and say, "Hey, Patrick, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Can you walk me through what I need? Walk me through where I need to go. Walk me through how this thing works." And I know you don't, you're not going to give them the keys of the kingdom and say, "Okay, go to this bridge on this stream and cast into this hole with this fly." But man, I would have made my life so much easier, and I really could have shaved an awful lot of really, really frustrating days on the water off had I just been willing to listen. So, if you ever run into Patrick or go into a fly shop, just tell them the truth. I think they're pretty willing to help you.
Absolutely. I mean, nothing. We're human too here at the fly shop. Nothing makes us happier than letting us flex our muscle and showing you just how much we know, just how awesome we are at this thing. So come in as a ranked beginner, and we will pour all of our attention into you. We'll make you feel all the love we can because it makes us feel something inside too. So don't be ashamed. As a general public service announcement, you've been a beginner before. You're going to be a beginner again in some kind of walk of life, in some hobby, in some interest. There's no need to try to fake anything. It's okay. We're here to help you. That's why we're here at the store. We love helping you. It makes us feel good. It makes you feel good. Let's all just be honest with each other. A little bit of humility would do us all a little good.
Yeah, that's right, and maybe a lot of humility for some of us fishermen. We could use a big dose of that. Um, there's an old quote. I can't remember the exact wording of it, but it said, "Every man I meet is my better in some way." And it doesn't matter if it's fly fishing or hiking or camping or how to set up your pack or whatever you happen to be doing. If you're going out and doing backcountry stuff, you probably suck at something, and there's somebody out there who's better than you at it. Even if you're pretty good at it, there's somebody out there who's probably better than you. And man, if you can turn down the noise and the ego and listen, you're gonna shoot way ahead and have a way better time. So, like Patrick said, they like it. I know you guys like it. I can see in your eyes when you give me the twinkle as you answer the question. I see it when I'm in there, and I love it.
You bet.
All right, so let's say this: we got a mixture of people listening to the show. A lot of them have been fishing for a while and are kind of more on the hiking backcountry side. But there are a fair number of people who have never really done it before. Or maybe they went on a work trip. That's how I got started, was on a work trip. And then right after I got back, I said, okay, well, I need to buy my stuff. I want to do this fly fishing thing. And I had absolutely no idea where to even start. I mean, I didn't know what the first thing that I should put in a shopping cart was. So if you were talking to a new angler who just walked in the door or called you on the phone or was looking online or whatever, and they just want to get going, they want to do this fly fishing thing, what are you telling them to put in their shopping cart?
Sure. If you're fairly short, you're gonna be mostly fishing in the Rockies, in and around these areas, mostly streams, mostly trout fishermen. The 9 foot 5 weight, that's the Swiss Army knife of the Rocky Mountains, so it's definitely going to be a 9 foot 5. Maybe we could talk about a 9 foot 6 weight, just in case maybe you've got bass on the mind, maybe you're going to need to throw out some streamers, some bigger lures to some bigger fish, perhaps. Maybe we could talk about a 6 weight, but it's almost certainly going to be a 9.5 just because that's big enough to handle some of the bigger fish you're going to get into, but still has the feel where a little 6-inch fish, it's not going to be a waste of your time. You're not just going to haul him in on a broomstick and then worry about the next one. Hopefully it's bigger. So it's got a bit of the best of both worlds. We'll find a reel to match. You don't need anything extravagant to begin with. There's plenty of available options right at the $100 price point. We can get you as far as $1,000 on a reel if you really need it, but let's start slow. The line, that's going to be the most important thing. That's going to be the part of the rig that I'm going to push most on you. I would rather you spend $100 on your rod, maybe 50, 60, 70, whatever it has to be for the reel. I'd rather see you put all of your money into the fly line. That is the one item that I can actually sell you that is going to have the biggest sort of measurable impact on your fly fishing experience. It's going to help you out the most as a hard, tangible good. So that's where I'm going to direct you. 9 foot 5 weight. We'll get a reel that functions. It's on a 9.5. It's mostly a glorified line holder. Then we're going to really have a more serious discussion about the line itself. After that, a couple 9 foot leaders in 4X, I usually recommend. Couple flies to get you going. Of course, you got to have a couple midges, a couple of my personal favorites. Matter of opinion, but I have the numbers to back it up. So yeah, we'll get you out on the water pretty quick in good shape.
I hate midges, man. I wish they didn't exist, and I hate them so much. But you're right, they do work. They do work.
It's a necessary evil. I mean, all waters all across the world. I'll sell you a zebra midge here, and you can go catch a fish in Pakistan if you want.
Yeah. There are days where I know that the answer is a midge. Like I literally see them coming off, and I know that nothing else is going to work, and I still won't tie on the midge because I just hate them. I just hate them that much. But he's right. The midges, they work. That plain old zebra midge, throw a beat head on that thing, or grab a Griffith's gnat or something like that, and they do work. I just wish they didn't. It always makes me feel a little bit bad about myself. But okay, so on the fly line thing, that's an interesting point, and it's actually something that I tell people pretty often too. And don't get me wrong, I mean, the more you do fly fishing, you're eventually going to buy yourself an expensive rod, and they do make a difference. They cast different, they feel different. I agree with the reel; they're mostly aesthetic, right? Like I have some expensive reels, I have some real cheap reels. If you're not hunting for tuna somewhere in the ocean, it's probably not really going to matter to you. But the line really does matter. And I find, when you sit down and you look at a list of fly lines, it's like kind of overwhelming. They're coded, it's like a WF, 5F, and there's different types of lines, and people are talking about head links and whether or not it's a textured line. And it's kind of a crazy world that, to be honest with you, I think eventually people just throw their hands up and say, screw it, just give me the default. But man, the default line that comes on those basic starter kits sucks. I mean, it's really bad, and it does make a big difference. So when you're selling them the fly line, what's the stuff they ought to be thinking about for that fly line on a first rig?
First of all, it's got to be appropriately matched to the weight of your rod. And that's not always as easy as it seems at first blush. perfect example, Scientific Angler's Titan Taper. If you buy it in, let's say, a 7 weight, it's going to be labeled as 7 weight on the box. Inside that box actually lives a true to weight 9 weight line because Titan Taper is built 2 line sizes heavy. So if you didn't know that, you're going to be a little bit confused as to why your cast is all of a sudden clunky with this new sinking line that you have on the end of your rod. And so that's to your point. It's the devil's in the details. If you don't know what to look for, you may run into some problems. You may run into some imperfect pairings for your rig that's going to take away from the whole joy of the experience for you. So there's a lot to consider there, and yes, it is very overwhelming. If we look at every single line all the manufacturers have available and every single line weight, we're in the hundreds and hundreds easily, maybe thousands for Rio and SA being the biggest in the game.
Yeah, it's a crazy world, and this is all just for like regular trout line. I mean, once you get into sink tips and sinking line and specialty line, I think I've talked to a few folks here about the fact that I do a lot of creek fishing, and so there are specific lines that are designed to load the rod more quickly in creek environments where maybe you don't have time or room for a full back cast. But there are other lines that are designed for more delicate presentations, and I mean, it's a wild thing. You're not going to be able to figure it out on Google. I'll just tell you, I tried. It's not going to work. You're not going to be able to figure it out. It's too complicated. Your buddy down the street who told you which line to get probably doesn't know. I'm gonna tell you what Frankie down the road doesn't know what line you should put on there. Go talk to the fly shop, right? So go talk to AvidMax, talk to Patrick, or find a shop that you love, whatever. But you're going to need some help on the line, and for sure, don't neglect that part. That's a great point.
Yeah, yeah. And I'll always talk to you. I'll ask you primarily what fish you're going for, what venue you expect to be in most often, what rod you have, because that's going to influence my decision as well, whether it's overly fast, slow action, so on and so forth, how long it is. There's quite a few factors that go into the selection of the appropriate line. And the more I know, the better I can help you, the better I can match the line to your situation. And the more you know, the more you can help yourself find just the right thing. But a lot of research, a lot of study in that particular arena.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how much science goes into that. So go talk to an expert. You're gonna be glad that you did that. Okay, so same question, but this time it's somebody who already fly fishes. Maybe they go and, they're hitting the South Platte or something that everybody knows about, doing their thing. And then they decide that they want to start doing some blue lining. They want to get off and find some of these creeks. Maybe they want to start hiking to a few of these high alpine lakes. But they want to start doing something that looks more like backcountry fly fishing because, I don't know, it sounds sexy, or maybe they're sick of having people high-holing them on every river they go to or whatever it might be. What does that shopping cart look like? Like, what's the next level for the person that wants to start getting into the woods and doing some fishing?
It's going to be a little bit more specialized. You're not necessarily going to have to worry about getting a new rod, getting a new reel. You can. There are shorter setups, lighter setups, more packing convenient setups. But if you've already got your existing 9-foot 5 weight, no reason to go into getting a whole new rod, maybe like a 6 or an 8 piece. That opens the door for more problems, more pieces, more problems. So you don't need to revamp your entire rig. You're going to probably need to streamline your setup a little bit. So a couple more specialized pieces of gear. For example, for me, the fly box was a huge consideration. I have an individual fly box for each category of fly, terrestrial, streamers, dries, nymphs, so on and so forth. But going up into the mountains, you need to be a little bit more weight conscious, perhaps, if it's an extended trip. A little bit more volume conscious because you're probably going to be packing other things in with you. So a smaller fly box, perhaps, that's going to accommodate a wide range of different types of flies and size of flies. So it's going to be a streamlining of your existing. Not necessarily buying more and taking more, but buying things that are all in the same categories, but more specific to what you're going to be doing. And It's going to be those external considerations that influence those purchases. How far you're going, how much weight you can afford to carry, how much room you have to carry all of your stuff. So you're, for the most part, the rig that you have at the moment, it's going to be good. Certain small special considerations along the way will be necessary, but not terribly too much. You know, your basic setup is going to get you into good shape. You're on the water, you're fishing, you're in the game.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I carry the same chest pack. It's like a little fish pond, Canyon Creek chest pack. And I carry it everywhere. So whether I'm fishing the local stock pond with my kids or I'm hiking 10 miles into something crazy, I have that same pack with me because it works all over the place. I will say this: I'm a big advocate. If you're going to be hiking, when you go see Patrick, think about having two rods. I always carry two rods and two reels because I have broken those things like 6 miles into a hike, and there is if there's a worse feeling in the world than that, I haven't found it. It's bad. So I usually have a 9'6" weight. I love that thing, and I use that for high alpine lakes. And then I almost always have a 4 weight or a 5 weight with me for streams or a backup if I break the 6 weight. But do yourself a favor, even if the second rod is just sort of a cheapo one, do carry two because you might get yourself in trouble out there, and it sucks when you blow your day and have to hike out with zero fish and a busted fly rod.
Absolutely. And I mean, to that point, best thing you could probably do for yourself, you've got your 9'5" weight. It's got its own tube. There's going to be a little bit of spare room in that tube. Um, easiest thing to do is going to be honestly go down to Cabela's, go down to Bass Pro Shop, buy yourself an Eagle Claw featherweight for all of $30, maybe $40 now with the inflation adjustment. And you can strap that thing naked to the side of your bag, and you've got a backup rod if need be. So that's always wise. Sage advice there. Carry two rods if you can.
Yeah, and I'll say this. So he kind of, you spoiled one of my tips for a future episode, but you can actually go get that cheapo fly rod. And you can, in most cases, fit two fly rods into the same rod sock and stuff them down into your tube. I used to carry two rod tubes. Sometimes I still have to because I have a couple of 3-piece rods that don't cooperate nicely with the 4-piece rods. And so I got to carry two tubes. But you can usually fit them in one tube, and then you just, you hit the road. And the cool thing is if you do have an expensive rod in there, if you throw it in the kind of crappy tube, a Cabela's tube or a Eagle's Claw tube or whatever, nobody knows, and you can leave that thing on the side of the trail and they're not going to jack you. Whereas if you carry your Orvis Helios in the nice white tube and everybody knows what it is, you leave that thing alone for 5 minutes and you might not have a rod anymore. So think about that camouflage. All right. So how does somebody go about finding a fly shop, Patrick? I mean, obviously, AvidMax is kind of my go-to spot. I know where you guys are, but I also know that people that haven't done this before, they probably need a fly shop. They need somebody to talk to, and they don't really know where to start. I know Google is the obvious answer, but when you're really thinking about a place that you like and that you trust and that you want to use for years, right? Because that's what you want. It's kind of a long relationship with a trusted shop. How do you find that place? How do you test them out? How do you evaluate them? How do you find your fly fishing home?
Hopefully, you're in a spot where you have a couple of fly shops that are close enough to access to go see in person. I would say give all of them the time of day. Go in, talk to people, talk to the sales representatives, whoever might be there. Throw them some questions, gauge their involvement in the sport, in the industry, and whether they give you the time of day since you've gone out to give yours to them. So see as many shops as you can. Find the one that's right for you. Whether the one that has the right people that treat you just the right way, that speak your language, that has everything that you need, everything that you want, everything that you want to see in that particular shop. And that's if you've got local shops available. Some folks aren't necessarily that fortunate. Maybe they're out in the boonies by choice. Maybe they're just in a sort of state where fly fishing is not really as popular as it is in Colorado. So at that point, you're probably going to have to resort to the internet. You're probably going to start with whichever sites bring up whichever product you are looking for that particular day. And if you can establish some sort of relationship, give them a moment, put whatever it is you need in your cart, then surf around their website, get an idea of what they bring to the table, what sort of surrounding information they offer on their website, maybe media content, a blog site, anything like that. Sort of give them that virtual time of the day that you would have to the local shop, but, obviously on a screen. And sort of build a relationship there. If you can, give the shop a call, talk to their customer service representatives, see if they're knowledgeable folks, see if they're passionate folks, see if it's going to be a good fit for you. So it's going to be a little bit more art than science. You're going to have to kind of guess and check, throw things at the wall, see what sticks, see who the right fit is for you. But eventually you'll come upon the right shop that has the right people in it, the ones that you just jive with, and hopefully it'll be a beautiful relationship from there.
Beautiful relationship. I like that. That's good. So AvidMax, speaking of giving folks the virtual time of day, if you go on the AvidMax website, which is just avidmax.com, and it's kind of crazy how much stuff you have on there. You have blogs written by people who shop there and work with you guys. You have fly tying tutorials. You've got articles about what you need and where to go. And then you have the actual shop and everything like that. And I wonder if it's just a cool resource with a ton of stuff on it that I think goes way beyond what you find in a lot of shops. Walk us through all the stuff on the website that people could make use of.
Sure. And before I get into that, and that was sort of the idea in spirit for AvidMax. We wanted to be the local fly shop for the folks that didn't have a local fly shop. And that happens a lot. I get calls plenty every week saying that my nearest fly shop is an hour away, 2 hours away, so on and so forth. So we pride ourselves on being the guys that have what you need and being accessible above all. So you get your inquiries online, and we're going to respond to them within a day or two. Some days are busier than others, but we'll get to you as soon as possible in considerably shorter time than you get from most establishments on the internet. So we're really here for you. And if it's an involved discussion, I'll write you an email and say, hey, if you get a moment, call me. I'd love to talk to you. I'd love to, this is really needs to be a conversation had voice to voice, if it can't be face to face. But other than that, I mean, it's all about accessibility for us. Really, it is, and that's why we have so many things available. That's why there's such a great depth to our website. Fly fishing is really half of the story for us. It's also fly tying, and that's becoming ever more and more and more popular. And the industry, as you mentioned earlier, the industry exploded in the ways that it did, in part because of the coronavirus. Everybody was locked down, going stir crazy. They had to get out to do something. So a lot of people picked up all sorts of various different hobbies. And one of the popular ones here in Colorado is going to be hiking / fly fishing. So Corona being what it was for the world was a boon for certain industries, certainly the fly fishing industry. All fly shops will tell you that they did great when Corona came around. So yeah, for us, it's about accessibility. We want it to feel like we're the guys just down the street for you, even if we're states and states away.
Well, that's how it feels for me, but you are actually the guys right down the street from me, so I don't know if that's it might not be a fair thing, but
best of both worlds.
That's right. Okay, so we haven't really talked a lot about fly tying on the podcast yet. We will get to that. I love that you said that. There are honestly times where I am happy just tying flies without the fishing part. Obviously, I eventually have to go fishing. I fish all year, but I like tying them, and it's a rewarding thing to do. It's awesome therapy. It's great meditation time. You can kind of pay attention to other stuff while you're doing it. It's not like you have to be laser focused on it like you would if you were playing like Super Mario Brothers or whatever. But if you wanted to get into fly tying, obviously they know that they can get the materials from you all. But where would you go to get started? If maybe you're not ready to fish yet, or maybe you already fish, but you've been buying your flies, but you want to get into the tying side of it, that other 50% of the sport. Where would you start there?
For tying, you're gonna you're going to need a vise first of all, and that doesn't necessarily need to be anything complicated, anything fancy, anything financially devastating. If we really need to, I'll tell you, go to Home Depot, buy yourself just a regular Olympia sort of bench vise, and you can get a hook into there. It's not going to be ideal. It's not maybe going to be as comfortable as could be, but you're going to have something that's going to hold your hook stable for you, that you're going to be able to affix all of your materials to. And again, you're in the game. So it doesn't have to be fantastically ruinous, but if you've got some disposable income, come into the shop. We'll look at our options for vices. That'll be the first step. You'll need a couple tools, of course, and then I'll ask you, where do you like to fish? What flies are most successful for you? We'll start getting you on to the materials you need for the flies that you want to fish, that you like to fish, that you love to fish. Your confidence flies. We'll start you off there. We'll suggest a couple of maybe not. I should say introductory patterns. Call it the woolly bugger, zebra midge, things like that, which will be easy enough, but will also incorporate enough features and sort of alternative tying methods that you'll actually be gaining experience into the various tips and tricks, kind of almost subliminally without you even knowing it. This particular way of arranging hackle or the tail feathers, whatever it may be, you'll see is applicable to many other patterns down the road when you get further into it. So, it'll be a matter of establishing what you like, what your financial position is, and we'll work from there. We'll get you into it.
And you really should get into it. I mean, it's a whole different game. It's not that hard. People act like fly tying is super duper hard. It's really not. You really only need to know how to do, I don't know, let's say a dozen different things. And once you know how to do those things, you can probably tie most of the patterns that you need. And you don't have to be good at it. I suck at fly tying, and I still catch a ton of fish. So they don't have to be perfect. It's not going on the cover of a magazine. You just got to get a trout somewhere to put it in its mouth, and that's not anywhere near as hard, I think, as people make it out to be. So
sure, and it's surprisingly rewarding catching a fish on a fly that you tied yourself. The first one you land on, the first fly you tied, it feels good. It feels real good.
yeah, I still have that picture. It was on the world's worst pheasant tail. It was just like basically some dubbing slapped onto a hook with an orange splash on it, and it was amazing. And now, and don't take offense to this if you don't tie, I almost don't count the fish if I didn't tie the fly. I make an exception for saltwater fly fishing because I don't know anything about that, so I need some help. But if it's a trout and I didn't tie the fly, it's not the same for me, man. It's got to be it's got to be the special flavor,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
All right, so last bonus question about flies. I'm always curious about this. What are the top 2 patterns that you sell in there? So when somebody buys flies, maybe online, maybe in the shop, what are the 2 most popular patterns that you sell off the rack?
The Adams, just because it's so awesome. It's got the right profile. It comes in every size under the sun. If it's not available from Umpqua in every color that you would need, well, you can tie one up yourself, easy enough. It's just become the go-to dry fly, at least for the mayfly. And then that's probably ever so slightly more popular than the elk-haired caddis. But the second part, the next answer to that question, I sell a hell of a lot of rainbow warriors in the shop. So that's got to be the second most popular one because that's what I push on to people. I always tell them that's the closest to a guaranteed fish I can get. The rainbow warrior nymph. It's a cheat code in Colorado. It's a cheat code in the Rocky Mountains. It works. It just works.
It does, and it's like a rainbow colored midge, and so I hate it instinctively, but it does work. You're right.
It makes absolutely no sense looking at it. That looks like no bug we've ever seen, and the trout go absolutely bonkers for it.
Yeah, and listen, that's true for a lot. I mean, Prince nymphs. I mean, they don't look like anything, and those things are the same thing. And they'll just eat those everywhere they exist. So
yeah,
that's awesome. Okay, so Patrick, if somebody wanted to pay you a visit or wanted to take a look at the shop online, where would they go?
Sure. I mean, if you're local to Colorado in the Denver metro area, you can always look us up. Google Maps will get you here in good stead. We're all over all the social media platforms: YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest. We're all AvidMax across all of those platforms. Of course, AvidMax.com is the website. It's under redesign at the moment, so hopefully, I think by beginning of November, we may have a new look waiting for you. New features there, river reports. Okay, that's good stuff. Good stuff. Our blog site is going to be a little bit more integrated, from what I've heard. So lots to come, and obviously, a lot of tying stuff on YouTube. We've got a YouTube channel, Tying Tuesday. You're always going to get a new fly pattern every week. So yeah, we've got a presence out there for sure. And that was the thing that surprised me the most about AvidMax. I was a customer before I was an employee, and AvidMax, from what I had seen online, AvidMax was just another one of these fly fishing behemoths out there. With the likes of, let's say, a Reds, a Trident, among those. It was always first page of Google. AvidMax was there. They had everything I ever wanted. And one day I finally looked, and hey, they're literally 10 minutes down the street from me. So, all right, this is my fly shop now. And I work here now, so obviously I like this place. It's worked out well.
Yeah, I love AvidMax. It is my shop. You can always find your own shop, but AvidMax is very much my shop. And man, I know you're doing it for business, but I am grateful for what you do, because honestly, if it weren't for you, I just wouldn't be able to find a lot of this stuff. So have loved shopping there. Have loved being a customer. And if you haven't checked out AvidMax, you definitely should do that as soon as you get a chance. So Patrick, thanks for joining us. This has been really helpful and fun, and thanks for giving us an inside look into what it's like to kind of live in the industry and work in a fly shop. And hopefully you'll be talking to a whole bunch of new people here pretty soon who are going to be interested in what you're doing there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Hopefully. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the opportunity.
Okay, that'll do it for today. We have been talking to Patrick Srebniak from AvidMax. You can visit their website at avidmax.com. They have a ton of stuff on there, pretty much everything you could ever want. They are not paying me to say any of this stuff before anybody accuses me. I just happen to really like the shop, and honestly, I go on there often, and they're kind of my go-to for actually just about anything that I need. So check them out. Go out, find your fly shop, find the place that speaks to you, where you have your people and the help that you need, and that'll help you get out in the water and have a better time doing this crazy backcountry fly fishing thing that we love to do. So I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something, and hope you come away sort of motivated to go out and find your shop and your place where you can get all the stuff that you need. And with that, we'll go ahead and call it a day. Hope you have a great week. Stay safe out there. Till next time, this is Ross. Maybe I'll see you out there, but hopefully not.